Working Group. He's a key member of the Ways and Means Committee, understands and comes from a region that understands exports and imports create jobs in America, and I will yield to the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Reichert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you for all your hard work and your leadership in this area. I'm a newcomer to the world of trade and a fairly newcomer to Congress, having been here 6 years. I want to talk a little bit about the frustration I think that a lot of us here in the House have been experiencing, and I think a lot of people, Mr. Speaker, across this country are feeling, and that is a lot of frustration, a lot of anger at this Congress, the fact that we can't work together. But the good news is that today we're going to have that opportunity. The President has finally decided to send those trade agreements that we've all been waiting for the past 4 years to Congress so that we can have a vote on the South Korean agreement, the Colombia agreement, and the Panama agreement. And these are all important. Why? Because they create jobs. We know they create jobs. In Washington State alone, 1 out of every 3 jobs is connected to trade. 1 out of every 3 jobs. South Korea is Washington's 4th largest trading partner. It is important for the people of Washington State to have this partnership with Korea, with Colombia, and with Panama. Right now, we are falling behind. The European Union, as I think was mentioned earlier, signed their agreement. It became final on July 1st of this year. Since July 1st, the European Union has increased their exports to Korea by 17%. We are losing market share. We are losing jobs. We must act now. The jobs estimated that we are losing are almost 350,000 jobs as we sit here and wait. 95% of our market is outside of the United States. 95% of our market is outside the United States. We want to sell American. Sell American. That's our goal. Yeah, we want to buy American here in the United States. We all want to do that, but we want to sell American. We can create 280,000 jobs by passing these agreements. And I think this is a time where members of this Congress, both sides of the aisle, and including those divisions within the parties, need to come together. If you want to create jobs and you want to be a leader in this global economy, if you want to encourage innovation, entrepreneurship, the time is now. The time is to come together, pass these agreements by a wide bipartisan majority. Show the American people that we are here to lead. Show the rest of the world that we are here to lead. And we are here to compete because America has the best products, the best workers, and the best imagination in the world. And I yield back.
Appreciate the gentleman from Washington making the point. Korea is such an important growing market in the Asia-Pacific region. If America hopes to continue economic growth and to have the strongest economy in the world, we must engage in that region of the world. And the free trade agreement that Mr. Reichert heads here in the House is critical to that. I'd like to introduce the gentleman from Louisiana, Dr. Charles Boustany, a valuable member of the Ways and Means Committee. So strong on trade, comes from a state that understands that trade means jobs. And I yield to Dr. Boustany.
I thank the Chairman for leading this effort tonight and for all your leadership on trade issues as we go forward. Mr. Speaker, expanding export markets for American farmers, manufacturers, and service providers is essential if we're going to have a strong American economy with private sector job creation. The United States has not acted aggressively enough to open markets over the past 3 years under the Obama administration. And now we're falling behind as other nations gain market share. America's had a strong comparative advantage in agricultural production historically. In fact, in my home state of Louisiana, the #1 export is agricultural commodities. Louisiana ranks fourth among the 50 states in exports. Over 500,000 jobs in this small state, a small state with a little over 4 million people. 500,000 jobs in Louisiana are supported directly by trade. Our rural communities in my state are supported by the strength of agricultural production and access to open markets. The local dentist's office, the local school, the small gas stations, all these things depend on the strength of agricultural production, not only in Louisiana, but across our country. And we need open markets for agricultural products if we're going to sustain these rural communities and economic development. The trade promotion agreements with Colombia, Panama, South Korea amount to over $13 billion annually in new market access. The failure to implement these agreements has caused significant loss of market share. Louisiana, for instance, is the third largest rice producer in the nation. Louisiana and U.S. rice exporters face prohibitive tariffs currently in Colombia and Panama. These agreements would phase out these tariffs, creating huge opportunities for Louisiana farmers and millers. Over one-third of Louisiana exports to South Korea would see immediate duty relief and elimination, a significant advantage for Louisiana businesses. The administration's failure to send these agreements over the past 3 years has had significant adverse consequences. In fact, on January 1st of 2009, Colombia's trade agreement with Argentina went into effect, giving Argentina's farmers a competitive advantage over U.S. farmers. In fact, America's market share in the Colombian market for corn, wheat, and soybeans plunged from 71% in 2008 down to 27% through the first 10 months of 2010. A 44% drop in market share, precipitously. That was nearly matched by Argentina's gain. And that's just one example of the consequences of the failure to act on this. Mr. Speaker, lost market share and job loss. We must immediately implement these agreements to promptly avoid further loss. Mr. Speaker, American competitiveness, American credibility, and American leverage with our economic competitors is at stake. Passing these agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea are only a start. America needs to move beyond that. We need a well-thought-out trade strategy that will allow American farmers, businesses, and workers to compete and prosper. An American trade strategy is a critical instrument of American foreign policy because our economic strength is the foundation of both our soft power and our hard power. An American trade strategy is essential for American leadership in the 21st century. I yield back my time to you.
I appreciate the gentleman from Louisiana making, again, a key point about how America is falling behind and how it's hurting our local economies, our local ranchers, our local companies, our local service technologies, and our local ports as well. I'd like to yield to a gentleman from California, the former chairman of the Trade Subcommittee, who comes from a state and a district that is rich in institutions, in ranching, in technology companies that export successfully around the world, and I would like to yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Herger.
I thank the gentleman from Texas very much, and I want to thank the gentleman for the tremendous leadership that you've given us in the area of trade, which is so crucially important to our nation, to our ability to create jobs, to our economic well-being here in our nation. As Chairman Brady mentioned, I am very blessed to represent one of the richest agricultural areas in the world, an area in the northern Sacramento Valley of California, just north of Sacramento. In our area, we are the second largest rice-producing district in the nation. We are also one of the top producers of specialty crops. Peaches, walnuts, almonds, dried plums, prunes are some of our major commodities. And the fact is that we cannot, both in California and in our nation, nearly consume the amount of products that we grow. We are dependent on being able to export. But our challenge, and the example I'm giving with my district, is really true in every area across our nation. is true in manufacturing, is true in everything we do, is that as one of the top trading nations in the world historically, the United States, we are dependent on being able to trade. 95% of the world's markets lie outside the United States. Now, what is the challenges that we have, and why are these trade agreements, these 3 trade agreements with Panama, Colombia, and South Korea, so very important to not only my area of California, but to the entire nation? The reason is that we have challenges in getting into other countries' markets. We have very low barriers coming into our markets. Other countries can trade with us almost barrier-free, but that is not the case with our products going to other countries. Other countries, virtually all of them, are very protective. They have very high tariffs. So therefore, what is taking place when we sit down with these nations and bargain and come up with these trade agreements is an opportunity of lowering their barriers so that the district in my area, where we can be able to export to them rice, peaches, walnuts, almonds, dairy products, and again, our manufacturing goods without these high barriers, and be able to get access to those markets. So it's very important that we do this. What happens when we don't move forward? Well, we can see it. I was in Panama just this last year. Panama now is doubling the size of the Panama Canal. They're going to need construction equipment. Now, where are they going to purchase this construction equipment? Well, they could be purchasing it from the United States, but guess what? Canada was successful in negotiating a trade agreement with Panama before we've had ours signed. Therefore, they have lower rates, lower barriers on getting their equipment into Panama. So Panama there has had a big advantage of buying from Canada sales that would have come from the United States. We can use these same examples with Colombia, the same example with South Korea, who has negotiated with the EU, a major trading competitor with us. Therefore, we lose out in jobs. We lose out in this market share. It is really a lose-lose for the United States. I want to commend the President. We wish he would have sent these 3 agreements to us sooner. I'm grateful that he's sending them to us now. It's very important that we pass it. What we have seen is at an estimate by a nonpartisan U.S. International Trade Commission is estimated that by signing these 3 trade agreements, we can increase 250,000 new jobs to the United States. 250,000 new jobs, that's without any stimulus, without any taxpayer money going into it. It is jobs of people who are unemployed today that can be employed, and it will increase at least $13 billion in trade. So I want to urge our Congress, I want to urge the House, I want to urge the Senate to vote for these, pass it. Let's get going on these trades. Again, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your leadership.
Well, Chairman Herger, thank you for your leadership of trade throughout the years. I know, especially for California, but for all the country, trade means jobs. These new customers means jobs. The longer we delay, the more other countries step in front of us and take our customers and, unfortunately, take our jobs. So thank you for your leadership. One of the bright new members of the Ways and Means Committee is a gentleman from Nebraska. He comes from a state that understands agriculture, understands you can't just survive by selling to America. There are so many customers around the world that need to buy American products in agriculture that is key to survival, it's key to job creation. I'd like to yield to the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And certainly I appreciate my colleague from California talking about agriculture, and it certainly speaks to the diversity of American agriculture when he listed so many products, and I don't think a single one of those that you listed were actually grown in Nebraska, and obviously we produce a lot of agriculture products in Nebraska, and we know what it's like to even produce more than we consume in our state alone. California might be slightly different, but we know that we've got efficient production all across America. And so I want to take just a moment to discuss the impact and benefits of trade agreements to Nebraska and certainly the national economy. As our economy continues to struggle, we should obviously be exploring every avenue to create businesses and create new jobs. Markets around the world present tremendous opportunity because of their size, scope, and rate of growth. And we've heard a lot of numbers tossed around this evening, but we know that beyond the U.S. lies 73% of the world's purchasing power, 87% of its economic growth, and 95% of the world's consumers. While the national economic impact of trade is very important, the increased marketing opportunity for Nebraska is obviously tremendous as well. For Nebraska, this means the 3 trade agreements will increase exports by more than $123 million per year. That's every year. Specifically for agriculture, the agreements with Panama, Colombia, and South Korea would lead to gains for Nebraska's major agriculture commodities, including beef, pork, soybeans, and corn. New markets create opportunity for farmers and ranchers along with the food processors, agribusinesses, transportation workers, and all of the sales and related professionals who support the agriculture sector. I want to make sure Nebraska products and producers make the most of the opportunities provided by international sales to increase exports. There's been enough delay. We certainly know that. And our market share in Colombia has already declined because of inaction. The debate is no longer simply about generating potential export gains, but also how to prevent the loss of existing export markets. Thank you again. I appreciate this opportunity. I yield back my time.
I appreciate the gentleman from Nebraska talking about the lost opportunities of delayed trade and the job opportunities of passing these 3 agreements with Korea, Colombia, and Panama, all of whom are dynamic economies we ought to be competing in. I'm glad at this moment to yield to a gentleman from Illinois, a state that understands the importance of competing and winning around the world and who do so successfully. I yield to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Dole.
I want to thank the chairman for his leadership in trade, and certainly this is an important topic. Just last month, we were actually here in this chamber when the President came down to talk about jobs in the economy. And there's no doubt it is the #1 issue that faces our country today, regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on. The President got up and talked about his jobs package. And as opposed to saying, no, we don't want the jobs package, what I said and what a number of colleagues that I know have talked about is, what are the areas that we agree upon? And let's focus on those and try to pass those, because the American public is demanding that of us. Certainly top of that list are the free trade agreements. And when we talk about the free trade agreements, it's trade promotion, where we're actually setting the ground rules with foreign countries, where the United States can actually compete on a level playing field. And if we can compete on a level playing field, the American worker can win. In the 10th District of Illinois, we've got 650 manufacturers that represent over 80,000 jobs. Of those 80,000 jobs, over 50,000 of those jobs rely upon exports. You've heard the statistics from some of my colleagues here today talking about 73% of the world's purchasing power is outside of the United States. 95% of all consumers are outside of the United States. Just this last week, I had a manufacturers roundtable where part of the topic of discussion was demand. Well, if we want to increase demand, I would certainly argue that we need to be able to have access to markets outside of the United States. Just with South Korea alone, would add $10 billion onto our GDP. For each additional $1 billion of exports, we create 6,250 jobs in America. That is a jobs plan. We can create additional jobs. In Illinois, we've lost 750,000 manufacturing jobs over the last decade, and frankly, we need to turn that tide around. We know in order to be competitive in the United States, the world is not going to sit back and wait for us. The EU has signed its free trade agreement with Korea, with South Korea, Colombia with Canada, and you've heard from others that the world's not going to wait. We're losing market share as we speak, each and every day that we don't act. We must move forward. It represents a significant amount to our GDP, and we all know that if we don't act now, we're going to lose jobs. It must be putting jobs first and foremost that's going to allow us to move forward for our country. So I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to stand up and embrace what the President has given to us, and I certainly appreciate the President sending us the free trade agreements. We told him we would act quickly. He sent them to us today, and today we're talking about them on the floor. We're going to act swiftly for the American people and for jobs. Mr. Chairman, I thank you so much for your leadership on this very important issue. It's about jobs in the economy and putting American workers back to work. And I yield back.
I appreciate the gentleman from Illinois who comes from a state that understands trade means jobs, and I appreciate his leadership and effort in this area. Minnesota is also a state that is growing and recovering from this economy because it knows how to sell American throughout the world, especially in medical technology and a number of other key sectors. I'm glad to yield to the gentleman from Minnesota, a key member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Paulson.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I also thank you for your leadership on the Trade Subcommittee. Mr. Speaker, there's no doubt with our economy struggling, Washington should be doing everything it can to give our job creators the economic certainty that they need and they lack right now, meaning meaningful tax reform, alleviating government regulations, but the future of economic growth right now, it doesn't only lie in an inefficient bureaucracy or lower taxes, it also lies in giving greater export opportunities to emerging markets that are hungry for American products and our ideas. The simple truth is that increased trade, new sales, and new customers are a proven way to create jobs. These three pending free trade agreements with Panama, South Korea, and Colombia will level the playing field for American businesses, aid in our economic recovery, and allow the United States to compete and win. And with so much concern about skyrocketing deficits, increased free trade is a no-cost way to help the private sector create jobs. In my home state of Minnesota, 60,000 jobs are dependent on global trade. Now, surprisingly, it's not just our fertile soil in the ag community or the iron ore deposits up north that are creating most of these jobs. Ironically, it's over 90% of Minnesota's trade-supported jobs come from the manufacturing sector. That's a true testament to the quality of Minnesota-made products and the workers who produce them. Now, by passing these three free trade agreements, we will reduce the barriers in 3 countries, allowing 60,000 Minnesotans and now others the opportunity to find new sales and new customers for their products, giving the companies who employ them the opportunity to expand and start hiring again. Now, this is about doubling exports, as the President has stated is his goal. And our governor just led a trade delegation, actually, to South Korea with 24 different businesses. And in Minnesota, it's not just about agriculture. As the chairman had just mentioned a second ago, I come from a state that has 400 medical device companies. It's these high-valued manufacturing opportunities that are huge opportunities for free trade and increased sales and customers. So, Mr. Speaker, today is a good day. The White House has formally submitted these trade agreements now. The Ways and Means Committee is going to act swiftly. The House will act swiftly. Over the past couple of months, there's no doubt that Europe has gained an upper hand by passing their own agreements with Panama, South Korea, Colombia, and other countries. But in doing so, we've been leapfrogged. And now this is our opportunity to get back on a solid footing. And every day of inaction that's gone by has been a day where we're falling behind and we're losing our competitive edge and putting American jobs at risk. So, Mr. Speaker, I am excited to work in a bipartisan fashion to see this come together in the coming weeks ahead and give our manufacturers a boost, give our exporters a boost, and get our economy back on track, and I yield back.
I appreciate the gentleman from Minnesota's quickly leaping into this issue, recognizing the jobs potential and his hard work in moving these trade agreements forward. We have another speaker from Illinois, a key trade state. Judy Biggert, Congressman from Illinois, has long been a leader in trade, helping shepherd through Congress some of the key trade pacts in the past that have turned trade deficits into trade surpluses for America. She continues to be a leader who understands if we tear down these barriers for American companies, American jobs are produced. I'm proud to yield to the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Biggert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank you so much for hosting this special order and all the work that you have done. You know, given the extraordinary economic challenges that we face, I can't think of a better or more appropriate topic for Congress to be addressing here today than trade. Let's face it, the pending free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea should have been enacted long ago. And only today, after years of delay, has the White House finally transmitted the agreements to Congress for ratification. As a result, we've been forced to wait while sales and jobs are lost to other countries that do not face the same trade barriers that U.S. exporters face. On many products, tariffs would have come down immediately upon enactment of these FTAs, giving a massive boost to our economy at a time when we need it more than ever. In my home state of Illinois, I visited with businesses like Hendrickson, Caterpillar, and Navistar, all major employers holding their breath, ready to export millions of dollars of U.S.-made goods to new markets opened by these agreements. Right now, an Illinois company like Caterpillar has to pay a $200,000 tariff for just one heavy-duty earth mover going into Colombia, while Colombians export come into the U.S. nearly duty-free. That is $200,000 that could instead stay in America with the free trade agreement and supply jobs in my district and nationwide. All told, these FTAs would support an estimated 250,000 American jobs and increase exports by $13 million. Perhaps most importantly, these aren't temporary or low-wage jobs that will disappear when taxpayer-funded stimuluses run dry. In fact, these exported-related jobs pay an average of 15% to 17% more than other comparable jobs and don't cost taxpayers a dime. And the benefits aren't limited to manufacturing. U.S. exports and services and agricultural goods stand to increase by billions of dollars. Passing these agreements is one of the most common sense, low cost, and economically sound things that Congress, in the President's own words, and I quote, could do right now, end quote, to boost job growth. And yet only today, after years on the President's desk, has the administration finally sent them to Congress for approval. Fortunately, the end is in sight. With the agreements now in motion, the House and Senate will at long last have an opportunity in the coming days to pass all three pending agreements. I urge my colleagues to support them and yield back.
I appreciate the gentlelady from Illinois, both her long leadership role in trade and her remarks tonight. San Antonio and South Texas, these communities understand a strong economy depends on strong trade. They're fortunate to have a freshman lawmaker who, in arriving in Congress, quickly realized, in fact, before he came to Congress, touted the need to get out, have a level playing field, to compete and win for American companies and ranchers and agricultural interests throughout this country. I'm glad and proud to yield to my Texas colleague from San Antonio, Mr. Canseco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to first of all thank Mr. Chairman Kevin Brady for his leadership on trade and for organizing this very important special order. Mr. Speaker, right now, the #1 concern of the American people is job creation. Over the past 2.5 years, the Obama administration's solution for job creation has been nothing more than more spending, more borrowing, more taxing. And it simply has not worked. Instead of job creation, all that the American people have gotten is more debt. Since the day he was sworn into office, President Obama has been sitting on a no-cost jobs solution in the form of our pending free trade agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. Together, these three agreements have the potential to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs by opening up the markets of our trading partners to U.S. exports, which will drive job creation and economic growth here at home. Several of my colleagues have already spoken of the importance of these agreements, so I will discuss the importance of these agreements to my home state of Texas. While the Texas economy is very diverse, an important pillar is agriculture. In the 23rd District of Texas that I have the privilege of representing, the beef industry is a very important part of the economy, as is cotton. All of these three pending trade agreements represent huge opportunities for Texas agricultural producers. For example, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, the Colombia Agreement will eliminate the current duty imposed on prime and choice cuts of beef, with all beef tariffs eliminated after 10 years. Cotton, another important agricultural export from Texas, will see Colombian tariffs on cotton imports completely eliminated once the agreement is passed. In the case of Panama, U.S. beef exports that currently face tariffs of 10 to 30% will be immediately lifted for prime and choice cuts of beef, with the rest eliminated within 15 years. The Korean agreement has the opportunity to be a huge windfall for agricultural exports. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that the Korean agreement will increase annual exports to Korea by a minimum of $1.9 billion upon full implementation. For U.S. beef exports, Korean tariffs will be completely phased out in 15 years. Cotton will see its current duty-free status become permanent, guaranteeing U.S. cotton producers will compete in Korea on a level playing field with other cotton producing nations. There is no doubt that all three pending free trade agreements are good for agricultural producers in Texas and in the United States. These agreements are also good for the United States' service industries. I am proud to say that I serve on the House Financial Services Committee. Currently, U.S. financial services providers face challenges to doing business in all three nations with which we have pending free trade agreements. The services industry in each nation is growing, and with passage of this agreement, American financial services firms will have better access and the better ability to compete in a vibrant and growing market. These agreements are also important to the United States' standing in the world. In particular, the Colombia Agreement should be passed so that Colombia can serve as a counterweight to Hugo Chávez's Venezuela. Despite all the benefits, at the end of the day, these agreements are about creating jobs here in the United States. Every day that we fail to pass these agreements, we fail to create jobs and economic activity that would exist had we already passed them. At a time we're seeing unemployment at its worst since the Great Depression, I am happy that President Obama finally decided to submit them for consideration, and I look forward to all three agreements receiving swift consideration in Congress and quickly becoming law shortly thereafter. I yield back the balance of my time.
Congressman Canseco, thank you for your leadership on this important jobs and trade issue. Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time is remaining?
The gentleman has approximately 18 minutes remaining.
Our next speaker is laser focused on jobs in Arkansas. He's made a big impact coming in as a freshman lawmaker, understands the needs to find new customers. Proud to yield to the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If America sits on the sidelines while other nations sign trade deals, we will lose the opportunity to create jobs on our shores. That was President Obama. President Obama in January of 2010, recognizing the importance of trade agreements to creating jobs in the United States. Today, the President finally submitted to Congress, over a year and a half later, he finally submitted to Congress 3 critical trade agreements for our approval. Because of what these trade agreements mean for job creators, this is welcome news. But the fact that these 3 trade agreements, one of which was signed nearly a half-decade ago, have been stalled for so long cannot go unnoticed. Korea, the Korean trade agreement was signed on June 30, 2007. But that South Korean agreement is not the only one. The one with Panama was signed in June of 2007, and the one with Colombia, November of 2006. President Obama even stated on July 8th of 2011 and during his August tour through the Midwest that all 3 of the trade agreements would be law by now if it weren't just for that obstructionist Congress. He said that the deals are something, quote, Congress could do right now, end quote. Well, that's not true. Wasn't true then. We couldn't pass the agreements because they were still on his desk, waiting to be sent to Congress. Well, we're glad they're here now, and we will join the President in moving quickly on these agreements. While we have waited on President Obama to act on these long-pending, job-creating export agreements, our foreign competitors, Europe and Canada in particular, are rapidly increasing their market share and cultivating relationships with trading partners in those countries while American businesses sit on the sidelines. Make no mistake, more American exports means more American jobs. In my home state of Arkansas and in the 2nd Congressional District, these trade agreements will be very helpful for job creation. Arkansas unemployment is above 8%, and we need pro-job creation policies in Washington to stop that from going even higher. We need pro-American export policies to sell more of our products overseas so that our Kansans get the jobs and our manufacturers and farmers get the business. The 3 pending export agreements with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea will increase U.S. exports and will create over 250,000 new jobs. Right now, more than 320,000 Arkansas jobs depend on exports, and these agreements will only increase that number. Full implementation of the South Korea trade agreement alone could generate more than 2,500 new jobs in Arkansas. Manufacturing exports are the strongest part of Arkansas's economy. Exports directly support 14% of Arkansas's manufacturing jobs and 66,000 total jobs in all sectors of the economy are supported by manufactured goods exports. Since 2003, Arkansas manufacturing exports rose twice as fast as the state's overall economy. 77% of Arkansas exporters are small businesses. And in fact, Arkansas exported over $2 billion of manufactured goods to free trade partners in 2010. That's 45% of Arkansas's total. That number will only continue to grow with the approval of these agreements. These agreements are critical not only to the country at large, but to Arkansas in particular. With 95% of the world's consumers outside the United States, we now need to give American businesses the opportunity to build stronger trade ties with countries seeking our goods and services, the best goods and services in the world. Now that the President has finally sent the 3 pending export agreements to Congress, we can pass them and help American companies compete and create jobs. I am confident that Congress will act quickly to approve these important bills. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back the balance of my time.
I appreciate the gentleman from Arkansas laying out just the economic impact that these agreements have on Arkansas communities, on ranchers, on businesses, small businesses, and on the economy as a whole. Our next speaker is from Pennsylvania. He is a freshman as well and one of the key leaders in our new freshman class. He understands the importance of trade to his state, and pleased to welcome the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson.
I thank my good friend from Texas for hosting this and for yielding. I'm very proud to be here tonight, a subcommittee chairman of the Agriculture Committee, to speak to the tremendous benefits that these 3 free trade agreements yield for all of agriculture across the United States. You know, Mr. Speaker, today America's farmers and ranchers are competing in a global market in face of stiff protectionism, while their foreign competitors are gaining preferential treatment and access at the American people's expense. It's been a long time coming. While the delay was unacceptably long and likely has cost jobs, I'm pleased the Obama administration has finally done its part and sent Congress these important trade agreements, free trade agreements with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. Many agricultural products have encountered dramatic price fluctuation in recent years, particularly dairy, as a result of depressed exports. These trade agreements will expand U.S. exports, create jobs, and bring much-needed income to communities across rural America. These exports are increasingly important to Pennsylvania's agriculture and statewide economy. Expanding these markets for our farmers, ranchers, and small businesses across the country is a critical component of future economic growth. Overall, every sector of Pennsylvania's agriculture stands to benefit from each trade agreement. Pennsylvania benefits under U.S.-Korea free trade agreements. The U.S.-Korea free trade agreement will benefit the Pennsylvania economy and create new jobs by immediately opening new access for Pennsylvania's goods and services in Korea's $1 trillion economy, and by establishing a level playing field in Korea for Pennsylvania workers and businesses to compete. One half of the chemical products and many other manufactured goods produced in Pennsylvania will enter Korea duty-free immediately. Tariffs on the remaining chemical products will be eliminated over the next few years. Korean duties on major Pennsylvania agricultural products such as grape juice, wine, and many dairy products will be eliminated immediately. Mushrooms will become duty-free within 5 years. Simplified and expedited custom procedures will enable Pennsylvania businesses to reach Korean customers more quickly and with less red tape. Full implementation of the Korean trade agreement could generate nearly 280,000 new jobs, including 9,963 in Pennsylvania alone. Pennsylvania benefits under the U.S.-Colombia Free Trade Agreement. Under the Colombia Free Trade Agreement, more than half of U.S. agriculture exports to Colombia will become duty-free immediately and remaining eliminated within 15 years. Colombia will eliminate its price ban system, which affects key U.S. exports, including corn, wheat, dairy, pork, and poultry. Tariffs of $202 million in U.S. processed food product exports, which are currently as high as 20%, will be immediately eliminated. Colombia is pursuing and implementing free trade agreements with a number of other trading partners. With every day that we don't act on this agreement, foreign competitors take market share from American farmers and ranchers. Pennsylvania benefits under the U.S.-Panama Free Trade Agreement. Panama is one of the fastest expanding economies in Latin America with 7.5% growth in 2010. Panama is already an important market for American farmers and ranchers. In 2010, the United States exported more than $450 million of agricultural products to Panama. More than half of the U.S. agriculture exports to Panama will become duty-free immediately. Remaining tariffs were removed over 15 years. Panama's tariffs on poultry range from 5 to 260%. Some of these will immediately drop to zero, and others will be phased out within 15 years. I'm so pleased that we're moving ahead with what will be great for agriculture and great for jobs in this country with these three free trade agreements. And Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for hosting this tonight.
I want to thank the gentleman from Pennsylvania again for his leadership on this bipartisan jobs issue, and again, the focus on creating jobs in communities in Pennsylvania by finding new customers is just key to the growth of our economy in America as well, so thank you very much. Tom Reed is a new member of the Ways and Means Committee. He has quickly established himself as one of our brightest stars on trade. He understands it means jobs to New York, and he knows it means jobs to America as well. Earlier this year, he helped lead a letter from our freshman Republicans to the White House, insisting the President submit these three agreements so we have the chance to compete and win around the world in these growing new markets. I'm proud to yield to a friend and a fellow member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Reed of New York.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Speaker. I rise today, even though feeling a little bit under the weather with an obvious cold, to show my support for these free trade agreements, because we have worked hard from day one here in this Congress to be a voice for what I believe to be true, free, and fair trade agreements that put us in America on an even playing field with our countries around the world. South Korea, Colombia, and Panama represent 250,000 jobs. It can't be any simpler than that. I listened to the President come up and present his job speech to us as we sat in this chamber, and I heard my colleagues talk about the length of delay it took to get these agreements up to this House. But I'm not going to look to the past. I'm going to look to the future. And I'm going to look at the areas where we can find common ground to advance the cause of the great American economic recovery that could start and will start with the passage of these free trade agreements. So I applaud the President for sending these agreements up here today. I am very confident that after a thorough and loud debate on these issues, they will be passed, and we will move forward to a brighter day of an additional 250,000 jobs in America, $13 billion worth of enhanced economic activity for the American market. Back in the 29th Congressional District that I am proud to represent, that is real money, those are real jobs, and what we're going to talk about are improvements in our agricultural industry, be it our grape growers, be it our wine producers, be it our apple growers, be it our dairy industry. But we're also proud in the 29th Congressional District to represent some of the highest tech and manufacturing operations in the entire world. A little company in the city that I come from, Corning Incorporated in Corning, New York, has had a long-standing business relationship in South Korea, producing LCD glass and other high-tech materials and manufacturing components. To me, these free trade agreements are fair agreements. They lead to job creation. That's what we are sent here to Congress to do, is to put America in a better economic condition so that generations of tomorrow will have the prosperity to call this great nation home for many generations to come. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Again, I appreciate you, Mr. Reed, for your leadership on this key jobs issue. You know, so many Americans out of work, the President standing in this chamber not too many days ago, urging Republicans, Democrats to come together to create new jobs. Can you imagine if there was an issue that the White House and Congress both agreed on, that Republicans and Democrats across the spectrum supported? A bill that created jobs not by government spending, by allowing the free market to do its work, to granting economic freedom to Americans to buy and sell and compete in key markets throughout the world. Well, today we have that issue. It is the 3 pending sales agreements with Korea, Colombia, and Panama. As we've said tonight, almost $13 billion of new sales for American companies, because we know we have to seek and compete and win around the world for these new customers. We know, too, that these agreements have been delayed far too long. Colombia is an old and trusted friend who's made remarkable progress in the economy and labor rights and human rights, environmental issues. And today we're on the cusp, finally, of passing a free trade agreement that recognizes our security relationship and our economic relationship. Today we have the opportunity, and I would thank the President for sending these agreements to us. As delayed as they were, the fact of the matter is he has made each of them better, has helped increase and improve bipartisan support for all 3. But each day we delay, we lose jobs in America. Each day we delay, Canada and Europe and China and others move ahead of us, take our customers and our jobs. It's time for the delays to end. It's time for Republicans, Democrats to come together and pass these 3 trade agreements for America. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair lays before the House a message.
To the Congress of the United States, pursuant to my constitutional authority and as contemplated by Section 446 of the District of Columbia Self-Government and Governmental Reorganization Act as amended in 1989, I am transmitting the District of Columbia's 2012 Budget Request Act. This transmittal does not represent an endorsement of the contents of the D.C. government's request. The proposed 2012 Budget Request Act reflects the major pragmatic objectives of the Mayor and the Council of the District of Columbia. For 2012, the District estimates total revenues and expenditures of $10.9 billion. Signed, Barack Obama, the White House, October 3, 2011.
Referred to the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform and ordered printed. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5, 2011, the gentlewoman from the Virgin Islands, Mrs. Christensen, is recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and the Congressional Black Caucus is pleased, and we thank the Democratic leadership for allowing us once again to come to the floor for the Democratic Hour. I would like to ask, first of all, general leave that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and add extraneous material on the subject under discussion this evening.
Without objection, permission granted.
Thank you. And at this time, I'm joined by 2 of my colleagues, and I'd like to yield to the gentlelady from Ohio who had the responsibility in the last Congress and who led us in these special orders for 2 years religiously and with a lot of conviction and great information to share with the American people, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge of Ohio.
Thank you so much. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank Representative Christensen for anchoring today's timely CBC special order on unemployment in the African American community and job creation. It is no secret that the unemployment rate for African Americans is almost twice that of the national unemployment rate. Studies show that 16.7% of all African Americans are unemployed. It's probably closer to 20% when you take into consideration those who have given up looking for jobs or who are severely underemployed. In some cities, it is nearly 3 times the national unemployment rate. And, Mr. Speaker, the people I represent are not talking about budget cuts, and they're not talking about continuing resolutions. The people in my community are talking about being laid off. They're talking about losing their homes while they're still trying to provide food to their families. We are in a crisis that will undoubtedly affect our children and our grandchildren. 11% of all American children have at least one parent that is unemployed. What does that mean for them? It means fewer opportunities, and it means fewer meals. As a nation, we have always prided ourselves on defining success as providing a better future for our children. That's why my colleagues and I are speaking out today. That's why it is absolutely essential that we begin to make changes that will help our people get back on their feet. We must do something to create jobs, and we must do it now. I hosted a telephone town hall on the economy a few weeks ago. 7,000 people from around my district joined the call to ask questions about resources for small businesses or how to find job training programs. These people, like so many others, are looking for a way out of this situation, and it must come now. It's clear to me that we have settled for short-term solutions to a problem that demands a long-term strategic resolution. We need to retrain workers for the jobs of today. Surprisingly, there are millions of positions that go unfilled in an economy where Americans are unemployed. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that there were 3 million job openings on the last business day of May 2011. Yet the unemployment rate at that same time was 9.2%. There were enough jobs available to employ just over 20% of all of these unemployed Americans, so there is an obvious disconnect. Many people searching for work lack the job-specific skills they need to be competitive for many of the job vacancies. Technology is outpacing the nation's current approach to job-related education and training. The difference between white-collar and blue-collar jobs is fading because traditionally blue-collar jobs are more specialized than ever before. As a solution, I've introduced H.R. 2742, the Hire, Train, Retain Act of 2011. This bill will give employers tax incentives for hiring unemployed Americans and providing job training to fill job vacancies specific to that employer. Employees will also receive a higher retention tax credit of up to $1,000 for each qualified employee retained for 52 weeks. Another proven way to get Americans working is through infrastructure projects. That is why I recently introduced the School Athletic Facilities Restoration Act of 2011. This bill authorizes the allocation of grants to local educational agencies for the construction, renovation, or repair of school facilities used for physical education. The funds will facilitate construction hiring while improving safe places for children to exercise and play. In closing, I want to mention that every single member of the Congressional Black Caucus has sponsored job creation legislation. The best way to reduce our deficit is to create jobs. That's why in August, the CBC took our message on the road and connected job seekers with employers at job fairs across the country. And we listened to the voices of our constituents during town hall meetings. Mr. Speaker, I came to Congress to be a voice for struggling Americans. My #1 priority is job creation and economic development, and I'm working hard to create jobs. Time is of the essence. This is not a time for political posturing and partisan bickering. The American people need help, they need our help, and they need it now. I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman Fudge, and thank you for that legislation and for your leadership on so many issues that are important to the people of this country. I'd next like to yield such time as she might consume to the former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, again a leader on many, many issues, whether it's health care, global health, AIDS, developing our agenda that we continue even to this Congress, creating pathways out of poverty, Congresswoman Barbara Lee of Oakland.
Thank you very much, and let me thank my colleague, Congresswoman Christensen, for those kind remarks, but also for leading the special order once again to sound the alarm about the jobs crisis in our country. But also, Congresswoman Christensen, I want to thank you for your leadership on so many issues, especially health care. But also, you remind us of the importance of health care reform, not only because people deserve affordable, accessible health care, but also you remind us that the many jobs that will be created as a result of the healthcare sector as a result of these healthcare reforms. So thank you for continuing to remind us of that, because many, many jobs are going to be created as a result of the work that you did. Well, under the leadership of our very brilliant and bold chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Chairman Emanuel Cleaver, and our Jobs Task Force Chair, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the Congressional Black Caucus has been hitting the street about jobs for some time now. We held 5 For the People jobs initiatives around the country in Cleveland, Miami, Atlanta, Detroit, and Los Angeles, bringing together employers who have jobs with people who need jobs. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people showed up at each event, all wanting to share their stories, learn how to interview or network, or just strictly to apply to get a job. As we know, communities of color are feeling this great recession more than others. In fact, for communities of color, especially in the African American community, the Great Recession has been more like a Great Depression. While the national average unemployment rate is 9.1%, the unemployment rate for African Americans is 16.7% reported, and for Latinos it's 11.11%, and that is for those who are reporting that they are out there looking for work. If we consider those who have essentially stopped looking or who have given up on getting a job, we can probably double these numbers. It's very, very tragic. The For the People's Jobs Initiative, this initiative highlighted what is taking place throughout the nation. People are desperately looking for jobs. People want to work. We must pass the American Jobs Act as a first step to address the job crisis that is sweeping the nation. The jobs crisis sadly moves hand in hand with poverty. The census released some staggering numbers last month in its report, Income, Poverty, and Health Insurance Coverage in the United States. 2010, for example, 2.6 million Americans fell into poverty in 2010. That's about 7,100 people a day falling into poverty. Let me put it another way. It's like a small town falling into poverty each and every day. The poverty rates in 2010 that the census revealed are as shocking and as staggering as the unemployment numbers. The poverty rate for whites, non-Hispanics, was 9.9%. For African Americans, the poverty rate was 27.4%. The poverty rate for Latinos was 26.6%, and for Asian Pacific Islanders, 12.1%. In 2010, 15.1% of Americans were living in poverty. Now, that's 46 million people. In the wealthiest and most powerful country in the world, 46 million people living in poverty, and 9.1% are unemployed. Creating jobs will improve our nation's economy and provide people pathways out of poverty. We need to target federal programs to communities most in need, and we can do this by using particularly the data sets like those from the census to target programs with the highest unemployment rates and the highest poverty rates. We can extend and should extend the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program and the Extended Benefits Unemployment Program, both of which expire early in 2012. If we don't, millions of unemployed Americans will no longer have a safety net until jobs are created. Remember, for every 4 unemployed workers seeking a job, only 1 job exists. That is a fact. We also need to pass H.R. 589, which I introduced with a fellow CBC member, a good friend, a great leader, Congressman Bobby Scott, which gives an additional 14 weeks of unemployment benefits to those eligible people who have exhausted their benefits and no longer receive this support. We have no idea today how these people are surviving in these devastating times, and we can and must continue to support them while we work to create jobs. Speaker Boehner still will not move this bill to the floor for a vote, and once again I'm going to encourage the Republican leadership to bring H.R. 589 to the floor. We also must restore the TANF Emergency Contingency Fund and increase the amount of money going to this program, which directly supports needy families with the basics and creates jobs. We also should develop and implement various cores similar to those implemented through the Work Projects Administration, the Public Land Corps, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, aimed at programs and services needed in communities across this country, including Health Care Corps, Public Safety Corps, Community Corps, and Teacher Corps. We should expand the Workforce Investment Act, aimed at young people, particularly 25% of teenagers and young people who are unemployed today. In the African American community, over 40%, all losing hope for their futures. We should extend and support the expansion of on-the-job training for unemployed workers, including those who are long-term unemployed and those who have exhausted their unemployment benefits, to help them refresh their job skills and ease their reentry into the workforce. We know that these initiatives will put people back to work, and that is what the Congressional Black Caucus continues to fight for. And we have to fight against the Republican opportunistic attacks on the environment and the regulations that protect the environment and public health, which, of course, they are claiming is a jobs program. It's no jobs program. In fact, turning back the clock on many of the Clean Air and Clean Water Act will simply destroy jobs across the country, along with destroying our precious natural resources while placing human health in danger. It's completely misguided. It's a terrible move by the Republicans. They're turning a blind eye to the need of the Americans and the needs of our economy. Now, the most effective anti-poverty program is an effective jobs program, and the CBC has been working to create jobs and connecting people to jobs. We're not going to back down, and as the CBC has done for 40 years, we're going to continue to fight for jobs, justice, and equality. Our voice as the conscience of the Congress is needed now more than ever. So I want to thank again Congresswoman Donna Christensen, Chairman Emanuel Cleaver, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and all of our CBC members for bringing us together to conduct this jobs tour, to speak out tonight each and every day on this floor in our communities on the critical issue of jobs, and to remind the Congress that people do want to work, and we should hurry up and pass the American Jobs Act as a first start. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lee. And